everything here, but nobody's any better at this than you are.
That's fine. Take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. You like this?
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett,
Be affirmative. You told me to get on.
info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it. Rowdy there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4, great job, guys.
Good Sunday morning, live from Melbourne, Florida. Man, what a long night it was. Flew from Richmond, didn't get down to Orlando till, what was it, almost midnight. Only got the rental car, drove an hour and some odd minutes down to the beach here in middle Florida, and got a little bit of sleep and back at it to bring you guys Racing in the Draft, Draftkings edition for Nashville Super Speedway. All right, make sure you can hit me up in the chat. Let me know that the sound works great. That would be awesome because I'm on my mobile studio, and this room has a little bit of an echo to it, so bear with the sound if it's not quite what I'm used to doing. But either way, I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. And let's just get into this. We've got a long day of meeting up with my son's friends for either beach or fishing or opening ceremonies tonight for the baseball tournament. But either way, I appreciate you tuning in. All right, before we head to Nashville, let's go back in time to New Hampshire Motor Speedway, where we saw a very unique race. Threatening showers definitely were on top of mind, and I wish it had just rained for an extra 20 minutes because Mother Nature was not kind to my Draftkings. I was sitting in first place in the 50-cent micro, I don't know what they call it, but the 50-cent 150 entry. I was sitting in first place, winning, I don't know, $2,000 or something like that. Had my fingers crossed, and then NASCAR decided, hey, this is a great opportunity to try out those wet weather tires. Taking back not winning the money, it actually ended up being a pretty cool idea, and I liked the idea, but holy smokes did it turn Draftkings and all the research on top of its head. And we'll have to remember that for last year when we're looking back in time at what happened and why it happened, and if we're going to have the same type of conditions, because it's very doubtful you ever have the same type of conditions at the track the same way with the same tires and all that. So part of that information will be kind of useless, but that's okay. It ended up being a fun race to watch. I loved watching how the track just really kind of had so many different lines. It really did look like a dirt track, and we saw the dirt track guys and drivers rise to the top last weekend. So that was the cool part of it. The uncool part of it is I didn't win the money, but that's okay. I enjoyed the race. Either way, let's take a look at some of the stats. But I mean, kind of like I had said, the dirt track guys rose to the top because it raced a little bit like a dirt track in some ways, just because they were trying to find different grooves, trying to find the wet spots to keep the tires cooler as tires began to wear and heat up. changed different lines. Some drivers trying to find the shortest way around the track. Some guys trying to find the wettest parts of the track. Made for an exciting race. I'm not going to negate that it wasn't really cool to watch. I just hated to see the money get taken away. That's okay. We're back at it again this weekend. And if you're ever doing multiple lineups and you work really hard all day and you get everything set and you have your Excel CVS or CSV file ready to upload to Draftkings and you get distracted, don't get distracted. Because, I completely missed my lineups yesterday for the Xfinity race. Not sure how they would have done because at that point in time I was running to the airport and have no idea what lineups would have done what. But I contacted DraftKings customer service and they helped me out quite a bit. So shout out to DraftKings and their customer service. They were top notch. But either way, we look back at Nashville. Sorry about that little bit of a jaunt, but just kind of let you know that DraftKings has always done the right thing when I've reached out to them about certain things and certain issues. So just wanted to give them a plug for doing the right thing. But New Hampshire, we did have a little bit of an overtime. We had 305 laps. But yeah, Christopher Bell, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick. I mean, Tyler Reddick's really not a dirt guy per se. John Hunter Nemechek, he's got a little experience. But Kyle Larson, Ryan Preece, kind of cut his teeth on that track. He was kind of one of my picks, my silent picks. So I still ended up having an okay day. Just wish I could have taken home the bag. And other guys down below that did not make the optimal lineup. Josh Berry, again, with just a phenomenal race for that team that may not be next year. But it looks like if Josh Berry keeps this up, I don't think he'll have a problem finding a ride, especially with Rodney Childress being on top of that pit box and his biggest cheerleader. So I expect Josh Berry to find a ride here sooner than later. You can see the other guys that did not make the optimal lineup just right beside my head. The optimal lineup challenge is once again tightened up at the top. Chase Briscoe or Brad Kay with 7. Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, Noah Gregson, Ty Gibbs, all at the top. And some of these guys are going to be favored to do really well today. So let's move on from Nashville. Well, let's look at some practice speeds compared to finishing speeds. And once again, kind of the same thing. There's no rhyme or reason, especially when you change tires and have a long delay because of rain. All the rubber gets washed off the track. We never got back to a clean, dry track. So everything got excused by all of that. So practice times to finish times, and the practice times were, a total of I think the highest was 7 laps. So not a whole lot of information to really derive from practice speeds. And all the cheap guys kind of were in play a little bit. Especially Harrison Burton, shout out to him for having a really good race. John Hunter Nemechek ended up having a great race. Eric Jones ended up having a really good race. Look at Ty Dillon even coming up to 20th place and 14th in the points. But yeah, it was it's kind of crazy. All right, let's head to Nashville. Let's forget about that weekend and let's head to Nashville, where we raced the Nashville Super Speedway, about 50 miles outside of Nashville. Why it's called Nashville, I'm not really sure, other than it's kind of the metro area. This track type is an intermediate style track. It is 100% concrete all the way around the 1.33 miles. In the turns, it is 14 degrees on both 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. The race length for today's race is 301. Dominator points are 210. So very, very similar to what we had last week. Well, good morning, Paul. Hey, Mark. The 54, 12, and the 1 had best practice numbers. The practice numbers we just did were for last week. we're going to get to this week's numbers. But that was last week's numbers compared to their finishing spots. So I'm not sure if that's what you were trying to point out, but yeah, we'll get to yesterday's practice numbers in just 1 second. Dominator points of 210 coming from 75 laps led and fast laps of 135. So we will be targeting at least one Dominator, and especially after going back and watching the previous races here from the last 2 years and yesterday's Xfinity race. If this plays out anything like the Xfinity race, a Dominator is definitely going to be and something we're going to need to be in search of. So finishing position and Dominators seem to be kind of the key strategy for this weekend. I'm not sure how much place differential, and place differential always plays, but it's not going to be, I think, as high a priority as some other tracks. For track comparisons, I mean, there's a whole host. You can look at, I mean, last weekend in New Hampshire, you could look at Iowa, you could look at Gateway, you could look at Phoenix, you could even take Dover and Bristol into the count because they both have concrete. You can look at Darlington because of the little bit higher tire wear. So it's kind of a mixed bag of a lot of different tracks to kind of take into account. I mean, every week it's always been a similar track, but just slightly different. We're definitely kind of outside of the realm of the cookie cutter style tracks. But either way, let's look at the last 2 years of the Nashville optimal lineups. Where, I mean, kind of like I was saying, the guys that started up front kind of stayed close to the front. Ross Chastain got the pole and won from the pole. Truex starting in 6th, finishing in 2nd. Denny Hamlin started 8th and finished 3rd. And then we had a couple of place differentials: Austin Dillon, AJ Allmendinger, and Eric Jones. In 2022, kind of the same thing. We saw 3 guys starting in the top 5 that ended up making the optimal lineup. That's New Hampshire, so that's not correct. There's one of my mistakes. Like I said, I didn't get until 4 in the morning, so I didn't get a chance to really proofread this. Either way, then we had Gateway and Iowa that we can kind of look at and compare at, and we're having this trend of, typically about 3 guys that are kind of starting up front and staying up front, and then we're having about 3 drivers that we're looking for place differential. So it's kind of a narrow field to kind of figure out. So this should be an interesting weekend, especially with once again Mother Nature sticking her ugly head up and saying, "Hey, you guys need to have some rain for a NASCAR weekend." There's a 60 to 70% chance of rain at about or on green flag time in Nashville. The difference is they do not have wet weather package for Nashville at Nashville for this weekend. But they do have lights. So if this does have some inclement weather, all it's going to do is push the start time. I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to cause it to be shortened or postponed to the following day, because they do have lights and they're out in the middle of nowhere. So I don't think they've got a time restriction other than what TV may do to them. So when we're looking back at other races with similar type length and starting positions compared to the top 15 in Draftkings points, this is something new I kind of started this year. I know it gets a little convoluted. It's kind of digging really deep in the weeds for data, but we're really kind of targeting this 11 through 20 and 21 through 30, not much outside of the 30s, unless it happens to be one of the top drivers coming from the back, like we saw Jesse Love come from the back yesterday and get all the way up to 3rd place. So we currently don't have any real drivers that fit that for the Cup Series, even though I do have a sleeper pick that I might be the only one that feels. I never feel confident about any one particular driver, but I do have a driver that I think is going to go extremely heavily under-owned, who could still very much be in play. But we'll get to him in just 1 second. But just as much from 11 through 30, we are definitely targeting about the same amount of drivers in that 1 through 5 spot. So I think it's going to be a 50-50 mix of start up front, stay up front, and the other half coming from place differential. All right, our practice speeds, as Paul Moss was saying. Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, all were fastest in practice. Love me some sleepers. Yeah, Matt, you know who the sleepers are, and it's not me currently, even though I am going on like 4 hours of sleep. But that's okay. I'm here. I'm ready to go. But Ty Gibbs, Ryan Blaney, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Todd Gillen, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Austin Cindric. Interesting. Austin Cindric fasting in practice. Did he back it up in qualifying? He did qualify 10th. I don't know. The last time we saw an Austin Cindric be decent at speed in practice and qualifying, he went on to win the race. That's not my sleeper, by the way. Even though I think he would probably be a sleeper, other than I think there's going to be more people who got burned by the Austin Cindric play at Gateway. So there might be a little bit of FOMO going on with Austin Cindric. And once again, I don't know if there's much data here from practice speeds. Other than maybe fall off, Ross Chastain kind of had one of the best fall off numbers along with Ryan Blaney. So those two could be interesting, especially with their starting spots. They could both play into the place differential and to finishing in the top 10 or even top 5. So kind of keep those out of all this list. Those are probably the two that I have the most intriguement on. Also, Todd Gilliland has been one of the top forwards quietly. So definitely keep an eye on Todd Gilliland. That could be a very interesting play also. Our slowest value, or our cheapest guys, our best value board here. Most of the guys that were that are on here, I really don't like much of anything, but we're going to have to find something in this group to play, because it's the only way we can play the upper echelon. So Zane Smith, he practiced in 28th, but he's starting in 36. So there could be some room here. That and his fall-off speed was almost unapparent. 0.07 seconds of fall-off speed after 10 laps. Daniel Hemrick, kind of the same thing. Starting 37th, 34th in practice. I do not love any of these picks by any means, but we're going to have to find something in here. And my sleeper is on this page. We're just not going to talk about him quite yet. Who winning manufacturer? Chevy has won every race here that I'm aware of. You had Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and Ross Chastain. So you've got 3 Chevys winning the last 3 races at Nashville. The Chevys practiced pretty well. Also the Toyotas, but the Fords have shown interesting speeds. I'm never one that's big on the betting market. I just typically do Draftkings. But if I had to pick a manufacturer, I'm guessing Chevy. I'm guessing Chevy would be my pick, but I don't really love the Chevy pick as a sure thing. So if I had to pick, it'd be Chevy, Toyota, Ford. That would be my order of manufacturers. But good luck, Wyatt. like I said, I don't typically do the straight up bets or the what Ford driver is going to be the highest finisher, and those types of things. So, all right, our driver by driver breakdown. Let's get into this. And there really is no clear, decisive. I mean, there are 6 guys that I think are very easily could be picks to win. This is a tough one for what I could tell. I mean, like I said, I'm going on a little bit of sleep, and I was in airports and renting cars and driving most of last night when I would typically do some more deep dives. But for what I could tell coming to Nashville, there literally are. I mean, every driver has the ability to win, or they wouldn't be in the Cup Series. If a Ford wins, it will probably be Blaney. Yeah, Blaney's got great speed. Yeah, I don't know. As we're going through this, as I see Fords, I'll kind of give you my thoughts on which Ford could potentially be the best. Yeah, I mean, you've got a Josh Berry in a Ford who could easily get this thing won. You've got Blaney who could easily get this thing won. I mean, heck, we've seen Austin Cindric do weird things coming from the Ford camp. I mean, Joey Logano still could easily show up and win. You've got a handful of Fords that have potentially, at least in practice speeds, an opportunity to win, but you've got some Chevys that look really, really dominant, and kind of history repeats itself a little bit, but not always. So I guess that's why it's betting. If it were a sure thing, it'd be, I don't know, what, negative 500 to pick a Chevy or a Ford or a Toyota, and then everybody'd be on it. All right, Kyle Larson, 10,500. Does it sound okay? Is it too light, too high, too anything? Just let me know. I can do some adjustments on here. I just don't usually get a true test on this piece of equipment because I don't use it a whole lot. Kyle Larson, 10,500, starting in 4th. His practice speeds were 6th and 9th and 10-lap consecutive average. You know, talk about somebody who's been consistently really good at Nashville. 3 starts, 1 win, 3 top 5s, all races he's finished in the top 5 with a 3.3 average finish. Our like tracks that I'm using, since we only have 3, or really 2 Nashville races with this next-gen car to compare to. I also put in Gateway, Iowa, and Loudon, which were the last couple of weeks. So that gives us the latest trend line and similar kind of style tracks. So, but out of those 5 races, you've got Kyle Larson with 3 top 5s and 4 top 10s at an 11.4 average finish. He finished in 5th year last year. So definitely Kyle Larson will be a favorite to win this race. All right, Denny Hamlin next in line here at 10,300 from the pole position. His practice speeds were not pole-winning speeds, but Denny Hamlin is also pretty good at this style track. But at Nashville, he has not been phenomenal. He's been okay, but coming from the pole position, I would feel probably a little bit more comfortable taking the pole sitter if it were somebody who was really fast in practice and had a really good history here, which would the previous driver, Kyle Larson, would somebody that would fit that category. And it's not that I'm going to fade off of it, Denny Hamlin. Oh yeah, I have no usage. I have not done any lineups. So this is a little bit, the ranking system is updated. I just have not had a chance to do any of my lineups yet. I'm going to do that after I get off the stream. Oh, look, the wifey's in the chat. Good morning. Yes, the sound is good. Thank you. With all the parity, I almost just want to play the lowest owned guys and hope for the best. Appreciate you going live on low sleep. This is my favorite NASCAR. Thank you, Wyatt. I appreciate that. And thank you for tuning in. And thanks to the wifey for tuning in. Everybody say hi to the wife. She's in the chat. I don't mind the Denny Hamlin play. I don't love the Denny Hamlin play. This is definitely a coin toss for Denny Hamlin. And he's been a little erratic on speed lately. Last weekend he had good speed until the wet came, and then he sank to the bottom of the river real fast. Paul says hi, wifey. So I don't mind. He finished third here last year. I think he's definitely got top 5 potential. Winning could be a little bit more difficult. So, like I said, I'll probably be 20% owned on Denny Hamlin. I don't mind it, don't love it. And Christopher Bell, who is just, right now just on a flat heater. Talking about a driver probably with the best amount of momentum on his side is Christopher Bell. We look at the stat line. He's in the last of these 5 races that we're comparing to. 1 win, 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s. All 5 of these races, he's finished in the top 10 with a 5.4 average finish. He finished 7th here last year. All 3 of his starts at Nashville, he has finished in the top 10. Starting in the 3rd position. Christopher Bell could be easily somebody who gets another win and he becomes the first driver with 4 wins. And, at that point, you almost have to start thinking about Christopher Bell as somebody to really take seriously when we get to Phoenix, if he can make it all the way to Phoenix, which I think he can. The playoffs kind of line up in favor to get in there. And with all this extra bonus points that he's piling up, he should be able to make it all the way to Phoenix. And he's very fast at that style track. Andrew B. got burned by practice speeds in trucks and Xfinity. Gibbs and Carruth, you think it's different with Hamlin? I do slightly. Kind of what I'm seeing with practice speeds, other than the value pick guys, where that's starting to show a small amount of data that kind of favors what practice speeds are compared to qualifying. Really what you're looking for on the cheaper end and the value pick guys that I'm seeing is the guys that may have practiced well who ended up not getting a good qualifying spot because the qualifying metric, they've got to go out so much earlier, and the track tends to get faster as qualifying happens. And I think the door bumper clear guys talked about this, and I kind of had Saboli knew this, but they kind of brought it to the forefront. It's kind of what's happening to Kyle Busch or Austin Dillon is they are mired back doing qualifying runs in the first part of qualifying. In qualifying speeds, like I said, they pick up as qualifying goes on. Number one, you're seeing different lines that are getting run. There gets a little bit more rubber gets laid down. The engines have more time to cool down. There's just lots of factors that kind of go into this. And that's typically what we've been seeing, at least with this next-gen car, is the guys that are qualifying early do not qualify as well. The guys that are qualifying late are faster. And that's going to be typical anyways because the metric runs on much more of a trend line. So whoever's doing well is faster. Okay, yeah. But the track changes throughout qualifying, and you could also catch a cloud and those types of things. But with practice speeds, there's more variability. You got more things that are going on. So the 10 lap helps with the tire fall off to kind of give you a gauge of how much fall off there's going to be. And then if there's huge amounts of fall off, you can kind of fall back on some of the more veteran drivers and those types of things. But what the door bumper clear guys were saying was Kyle Busch has really got himself in a sticky spot, along with Austin Dillon, is they keep having to go out and qualifying within the first 10 cars. And that's typically showing that they're going to be kind of mired back a little bit. They're not getting good pit selections. And being back of that muck is very dangerous. It's hard to pass with this car. track position is kind of key at most of these tracks, and with this car with the aero block. So that's kind of part of the key. Andrew got burned by practice. Okay, is it different with Hanley? Yes, Andrew. Group had top 10 speed, top 10 out of 10 practice speeds. Yeah. So, whichever. But that's, yeah, I think the other thing is, when they're practicing and all these different teams are doing different things, some people go out a few minutes after the track kind of gets worn in a little bit. They also are set up much more for race trim and not qualifying trim. You've got some guys who are set up in qualifying trim and not necessarily race trim. And so then they have short run speed. So what does that mean in a long green flag first stage? Then they're going to typically drop off a little bit. There's just so many variables that end up getting played, and you kind of, I think practice speeds are a decent guide. It's kind of like waking up in the morning and being a little bit of fog, and the walls will help you kind of stay in path. But it's not the true thing. I don't know. I don't think that made much sense. I'm a little tired, but thanks, Philly man. I appreciate that. But Christopher Bell, $10,000. He's on a heater right now, and it's kind of one of those ride that horse until that horse can't ride no more type of theory here. And so I will definitely be a little bit on Christopher Bell again this weekend. This kind of sets up for a pretty good finish for Christopher Bell again. And if he can get another win underneath his belt, he is going to be trouble. Martin Truex Jr. Martin's not great, not bad here, but this is a type of track that Martin typically runs fairly well at. So we'll kind of see. Practice speeds were okay. Qualifying was okay. The question is, can Martin Truex Jr. kind of gain a few spots? Maybe. His practice speeds were 20th in single lap, 12th in 10-lap consecutive average, 16.4 average finish. He finished second here last year, so that's pretty good. And that was his best finish. I don't have the other two finishing spots, but I wouldn't mind giving Martin Truex Jr. He could be somebody that could get overlooked. He has not been running amazingly well recently, and his qualifying speed kind of gives him a little bit of room for place differential. So I think Martin Truex Jr. could easily be a sleeper. Family man, mark that down. Martin Truex Jr. as a potential sleeper, coming from 17th, and his performance recently has not been phenomenal. So I think a lot of people could be off of Martin Truex Jr. Now, the question is, some of those are very valid points, and he has not been running as well as Martin Truex could, but this track does set up nicely for Truex. Chase Elliott, next in line here, $9,700. Chase Elliott won the inaugural race here at Nashville 3 years ago, but that was in the last generation car, and this generation car is way different. But if we look at his total body of work at these five last races, Nashville, Gateway, Iowa, and Loudon, talk about Mr. Consistency. He is right there with Christopher Bell. He's just not getting those wins. He does have the win to make the playoffs, but Chase Elliott, out of those 5 races, 1 win, 3 top 5s, 3 top 10s, all 5 races in the top 20 with a 7.8 average finish. And the 3 races here at Nashville, he's got 1 win with a 6.0 average finish. So even with the last gen and next gen car mixed into this, he's pretty much averaging a top 5 finish. Starting in 13th, we have a little bit of place differential. I definitely do like some Chase Elliott. And Chase Elliott has typically decent ownership, but he never has an extreme amount of ownership. So he could be maybe not a sleeper, but just somebody to kind of take out of the weeds a little bit. He may get a little bit overlooked, other than he does have a win here. So I think his ownership probably comes in at about 18 to 20%, and that's probably where I'll be with him. I'll probably be even on the field. William Byron, $9,500, starting in 7th. His practice speeds were 19th, and he did not do a 10-lap consecutive average run, so we don't know what his long-run speed looks like. His races for the last 5 races, 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s. If we look at Nashville, 3 starts, 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s at the 14.7 average finish. Willie B has just had he's not had the bad luck of a Kyle Busch or an Austin Dillon or any of those types of guys, but he just hasn't been able to put good, solid races together week in and week out. We see glimpses of, okay, he's there, and sometimes we see glimpses of, nope, it's not there. So I'm not. Willie B is kind of where Christopher Bell was 6-7 weeks ago, where Christopher Bell literally almost couldn't get out of his own way. It's not quite that bad for William Byron, but there's some cause for concern. Ryan Blaney next in line here, who, talk about fast in practice. $9,300 here, starting in 18th, but second in single lap, first in 10 lap. Showed really good practice speeds. And out of the 5 races, he does have 1 win, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10s, 2 top 20s, a 17.8 average finish. But that 1 win came at Iowa. He was doing really well at Gateway and ran out of gas. He had a decent car at Loudon intermediately, but he finished 36th in this race last year. Matt's on Blaney today. Oh, man, I hate going against my man. I think I like him for place differential. I don't know if and trust me, Ryan Blaney could easily be a top 5 finisher. I'm not targeting him as a top 5. I'm kind of targeting Ryan Blaney as a 6th to 7th place finisher, but that's enough for place differential for me. So I like the Ryan Blaney play. I'm just not going to be. Andrew thinks Blaney's a 6x value. Do you think Elliott can lead laps? 5th place finish would need about 20 Dominator points for Andrew. Elliott, can Elliott lead laps? Where was Elliott starting? 13th? That's going to be tough for him to lead a lot of laps. And Chase Elliott this year has not had a tendency to lead a lot of laps. Can Elliott hit 6x value? No, I don't think so. I think he's going to be good. I think he's top 5, but I'm not sure he leads a lot of laps. I think that's going to be your issue. I think he's going to be much more of, I like the Chase Elliott play. I like Chase Elliott play probably more than I like the Ryan Blaney play. But I could see the call for Ryan Blaney being very fast in practice and then qualifying in 18th. So, gotta update my sheet. Yeah, no, I trust me, my sheets are I'm always having to update, and I find wrong formulations and stuff in them all the time. That's part of the game. You're always chasing. Ross Chastain at $9,000, starting in 20th. Practice speeds, once again, for Ross Chastain were really good. 4th and 2nd. And out of the 5 races that we're comparing to, all the other races are not very good for Ross Chastain, but Nashville is really good for Ross Chastain. So let's skip all the way down. 3 starts at Nashville, 1 win, 3 top 5s, a 2.7 average finish where he did win this race last year. For some reason, Ross Chastain and this track, and especially Trackhouse, because this is a home race for Trackhouse Racing. They're based in Nashville. They're one of the only teams that are outside of the Charlotte metro area. So this is their Coke 600 per se. They want to make sure that they win this race. So all the eggs are going to be in the basket for Ross and for Daniel Suarez. Not sure I like the Daniel Suarez play, but I definitely like the Ross Chastain play. But with him starting in 20th and being that fast in practice, he is going to be highly owned. My guess is Ross is, if not first, second of the highest owned drivers. Now, I think this highest owned driver thing is going to be spread out amongst a Ross. Let's see, who do I think the highest owned drivers will be? Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott to be fifth on that list, Larson, and I don't know who the fourth one might be. I'll have to think about that one. Tyler Reddick, $8,800. I mean, decent in practice speeds. 10th in single lap. Did not do a 10-lap consecutive average. He finished 30th in his race last year. I mean, I don't like where Tyler Reddick is starting. I will be a fade on Tyler Reddick. So if somebody wants to take him as a sleeper, I don't think he's going to be super highly owned. I think he's going to be probably 10 to 12% owned. But I'm gonna be a fade on Tyler Reddick. This race just does not set up super well for Tyler Reddick and what's in his wheelhouse. I mean, it's not bad, but out of 3 starts, he only has 2 top 20s. He has no top 10s. And if we look at even the comparison races and kind of what's happening recently, it's not there. I mean, his practice speeds were okay, but I'm going to be a fade on Tyler Reddick this week. Joey Logano is coming from 26th, $9,800. I don't think Joey Logano should be a 26th place driver, but I don't know. Kind of recently, he has been kind of a 26th place driver. He's actually been doing a little bit better lately. And if we look at the 5 tracks, the 5 races, 1 top 5, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s, 14.2 average finish. He finished 19th in this race last year. Out of the 3 races here, actually at Nashville, he's got a 12.7. Starting at 26, yeah, I don't mind the Joey Logano play. But Joey Logano's kind of been where Willie B has been recently, but he's been there the whole year. Joey Logano's just been off, and I don't get it. I mean, a 2-time champion should not be this far off. Then it's not an age thing. He's still, 31, 32? If that. He's in his young 30s. So, but either way, Joey Logano, I mean, I'll take a few shots on it. There's going to be a lot of place differential here. Could this be a race where he finally bounces back? Maybe. Okay, let's see. Andrew was talking about talking about Elliott. A 5th place finish, needs about 10 Dominator points. I'm not sure Chase Elliott gets 10 Dominator points. That would be 24 fast laps with no laps led. I'm not sure that that's there. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that gets you in Draftkings points. I mean, that's going to put him in the top 15 in Draftkings points if he finishes 5th. Coming from 13th, that probably puts him top 10 in fantasy points. Is that enough? I mean, it's probably enough to take a shot on. Brad Keselowski at $8,500. Starting in 5th, 12th in single lap, 18th in 10 lap. 16.2 average finish at the 5 races that we're comparing to. And out of the 3 starts at Nashville, it's an abysmal 21.3 average finish with only 1 top 20. But Brad K is a much different driver today than he was last year, or especially that team. But starting in 5th, I kind of put him right there with Tyler Reddick. I don't love this play. I don't hate this play. He ran really well at Darlington and has run decently well I mean, the last couple weeks he's been a little bit off. So I think starting in 5th makes it's a little bit nervous. So he could be. I'm not going to be on him. So hey, Matt, if you want to be on Brad K, that could be a sleeper. I mean, I'm not going to have a full-on fade, but it'll be 10 to 15% ownership with Brad K. Ty Gibbs, who, I mean, when he was out front, he was fast yesterday. When he kind of got mired back in traffic, it got ugly, and then the alligator came up and bit him in the backside because he wouldn't move out of the alligator's way. So Allgaier, that's what I was trying to think. Sorry, brain fog. Allgaier came up and bit him, and Ty Gibbs' day was pretty much done after that point. But he wouldn't get out of the way. I don't blame Allgaier for getting up and kind of going, hey, I'm faster than you, move. But Ty Gibbs, $8,400, starting in 8th position, fastest in practice, 4th in 10-lap consecutive average. I don't mind having a little bit of the Ty Gibbs play today. I think he could be a little bit of a sleeper because of his starting spot. I'll probably have a little bit more ownership in Ty Gibbs than I do Brad K. Reddick is what I was thinking about. So I'll be a little bit heavier than those two, but I'm not going to be super heavy. I'm probably going to be like 13 to 15% on Ty Gibbs. Maybe even 16%. Yeah, this between $8,000 and $9,000 is kind of sticky. Chris Buescher's definitely. I mean, he's right on that edge, and it's one of those that if he just can push through. The problem is at these like-style tracks and races, 17th place average finish, 18th in this race last year, 28.3 average finish at Nashville. And he wasn't, I mean, he was okay in practice. He was middle of the pack. He was 18th, and he qualified in 9th. He said he liked his car when he got interviewed. I just don't love the starting spot. I don't think there's much of a dominator potential here. I don't think he's much more than a top 5 driver. I think he's kind of more of start where you finish where you start, if not maybe a tick worse. And Chris Buescher is one of those that he could easily come out and hit something correct and get up and blow us all away. I just don't love the play. So once again, I mean, these $8,000 to $9,000 drivers, I'm probably going to be in the 10% ballpark. I'm going to kind of use them as a mix and match a little bit, and if one hits, that's cool. Kyle Busch, I think Matt said it to me in a text last week pretty well. I'm done with him. Yeah, he is burned everybody every week, week in and week out. And Kyle Busch is going to have a comeback weekend. Who knows when that weekend's going to be? It could be this weekend. It could be next week at Chicago. I don't know. But until Kyle Busch has literally 2 or 3 weekends that he's decent, I have no interest in him. It's kind of like his teammate Austin Dillon. I'm done with Austin Dillon too. None of the data other than what has happened recently shows that RCR is right there with Legacy. They are just out to lunch and have no earthly idea. Same thing with Kaulig. All 3 of those teams out to lunch. They have no idea what's going on. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in RCR. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Kaulig. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Legacy. Until they can figure out what the heck's going on with their race teams, I don't know if I have much interest in any of these drivers. I mean, Kyle Busch's practice speed's 29th in single lap, 21st in 10 lap. Out of the 5 races that we're comparing to, 27th place average finish, 13.7 here at Nashville. And his current trend is, I mean, what's the over-under on Kyle Busch? How many spins he has on a weekend? I mean, I would say 2 at this point, or 1.5. And I'd probably take the over. Alex Bowman, $8,000. I mean, once again, we've kind of get into this realm of I I don't know what's going on with Alex Bowman either. Starting in 12th, I mean, he's probably going to finish where he starts, to be honest. It's kind of what the trend line is for Alex. I know he had some struggles in practice. I can't remember exactly what it was, but a win would get it. For Elliott, oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you get the win, that means you're going to be leading, probably not leading the last lap. Not at a track like Nashville. It's not typically a last single lap pass to get you the win and only lead one. It can happen, sure, but that's probably not the trend line that I would look at for Nashville. If he's got the lead, he's probably got the lead for the last 30 laps. Or it's a green white checkered, which then becomes odd and weird. But yeah, a win. I mean, Andrew, if he's anywhere close to the top 5, he's going to be a good value play. I'm not sure what your goal is with Elliott, and I guess maybe that's kind of what I'm looking for. Do you have a particular DraftKings number you're looking for him to hit? Are you looking for a top 5 position because you want to place a bet? What do you need for Elliott to hit? Is kind of what I'm trying to dig at to kind of help you out a little bit. I think Chase Elliott is easily probably a top 5 driver. Could he get the win? Yeah. If he gets the win, he's going to have plenty of points. But I think realistically, I'm going to put him as a 3rd. And does that get you enough? Trying to get as much 6x value on my drivers. I usually don't go off of what type of X a driver gives me. I mean, everybody runs these things different, and I get you. So I'm not, my brain doesn't, and none of my algorithms go off of what X value is a driver. My mind gets much more to, can they get to 40 points? Regardless of what their price tag is. And kind of my bar is, can this driver get to 40 points in DraftKings? Because that typically is kind of, unless you get into the really, really cheap value plays, any driver that can get to 40 points or more for a race is typically top 10 in DraftKings points. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is what drivers are going to hit, regardless of what the X is on them. What drivers can get to 40 points, and how can I mix and match them within my lineups to find the right pick? And then the really cheap value drivers, the Justin Haleys of the past. We'll get to the cheaper drivers here in a minute, but that's kind of how I look at things. It's really not value to X. It's much more, is this driver even a value? Like Alex Bowman starting in 12th at $8,000. I don't love the fact that he gets to 40. I think he's probably a 30 to 35 point day for Alex Bowman, which isn't bad, but at $8,000, that's not enough. So I don't know if that helps with your thought process, Andrew. And we all go about this different. And that's the great thing about this DraftKings world, is everybody has a little tendency to do something a little bit different. And that's why we get so much variable in all of our lineups, which then makes it fun. It also makes it really hard to ever really get that optimal lineup. Matt and I talk about this quite often, on how much more difficult it is to cash in NASCAR than it is football. And I don't do a whole lot of daily fantasy football because number one, I'm still doing NASCAR stuff, and by the time NASCAR gets done, I'm spent. And there's just so many different positions, players, points on how they can get them. And I mean, the same thing could be said about NASCAR, but we're trying to fit it all in. it gets too much for me. I mean, I guess if I were fully retired and had all the time in the world, I could, but I can't do both. So I stick to NASCAR. I stay inside my lane. Bubba Wallace 7,800 starting in 24th. I don't mind the Bubba Wallace play. Starting in 24th, you know, I mean, kind of my thought, can he get to 40 points in DraftKings? That's probably going to be 10th, 11th, 12th. Do I think Bubba Wallace can get to 10th, 11th, or 12th? I mean, his past averages are not great here, but he does have 3 top 20s in 2 races here. He's got 2 top 20s. He hasn't hit the top 10. I could see the argument on both sides, but he was very fast in practice, and he did plenty of laps. So they've got a lot of data about what the car is going to do over a longer run. So I don't mind the Bubba Wallace play. I think he might get a little bit overlooked. Yeah, I mean, the question is, it's almost kind of like we're starting to see a resurgence again of Bubba Wallace getting in his own way, and his head not being screwed on where it needs to be. And he's worried so much, and he should be worried about this, about the cut line and getting into the top 16 in points. I mean, Bubba Wallace needs to just go out and focus on winning a race. I mean, all it's going to take is a Josh Berry to win this race tomorrow, and Bubba Wallace is not a couple points out. Bubba Wallace is almost a must-win out. Kyle Busch is already at an almost win. Chris Buescher becomes an almost win. If any of these drivers that are in the 20 to 30 range, so a Noah Gragson going out and winning, a Chase Briscoe going out and winning, Noah Gragson, any of those guys from SHR go out and win a race, Bubba Wallace has got to win to get into the playoffs. Kyle Busch has got to win to get into the playoffs. Joey Logano might be even at a must-win to get in the playoffs. One driver outside the top 18 in points right now really makes the cut line very difficult for a lot of these drivers that made the playoffs last year to get in. And I think Bubba's more concerned about that than he is just going and getting good finishes. So I think Bubba Wallace is he's getting in his own head again. I think he needs to sit down with Michael Jordan again and figure out what he's doing. Just my personal opinion. Because when he's focused and he's good, he's really good. I'd like Bubba Wallace. He just is in his own way right now. Family Man, NASCAR is the biggest gamble in DFS, if that makes sense, because of the variables. Yeah, and it took me a while for me to accept that fat, Matt, because I just thought there were so many different variables in NFL that once you kind of explained to me, I get it. I just still am a bigger NASCAR fan than I am an NFL fan. What's up, kiddo? My son's finally up and moving around after a really long night of traveling. Josh Berry. Could you imagine if Haley was in Bubba's car? I mean, Tyler Reddick's really good, and Tyler Reddick and Bubba are in the same car. And Tyler Reddick's been having a little bit of struggle recently too. And even Denny Hamlin has admitted that there's something not quite right at 2311. It's not super off. It's not like Legacy. It's not like RCR, but they're just a little bit shy on speed. And Denny has admitted that he's been there and he's there to help if the hand gets raised. He's trying to let 2311 figure it out on their own without being being too much of an owner, more of an advisor, and letting them figure it out. I mean, we could even look to the fact that Kurt Busch is kind of the driver coach over there and kind of the mentor for the team, more hands-on than Denny is. Well, as far as I know, Kurt Busch has been in Europe for the last couple of weeks. And we kind of saw this drop off when Kurt Busch went to Europe. Nashville winner today, not named Hamlin or Lawson. What's up, James? Josh Berry. Ryan Blaney. I think there's a Christopher Bell. There was a 3 right off the top of my head. I'm not sure I like Hamlin or Larson as a full on pick. I like them both for top 5s. I mean, Chase Elliott could win this ring. But yeah, I mean the guy on the screen right now, Josh Berry. Just all the momentum is heading in his direction. He gets a win, and he could pretty much write his ticket to whatever team he wants to go to next year. That has an opening. Whether that's staying at Stewart-Haas, even I think Cole Custer is going to be in that car. But that puts him really as a shoe-in at the 21 car. Or being over front row with Todd Gilliland, which I think is an intriguing pick if they can pull Josh Berry and Rodney Childers. James says, in a weekly Survivor pool, I can't pick the same driver twice in a season. Appreciate it. If I'm doing a Survivor pool, I would go Bell over Berry. But if you're looking for a Survivor pool, and I'm not sure you're looking for an absolute winner, I think you're just looking for somebody who's going to be potentially better than Hamlin or Larson. Berry fits that. Bell fits that. Elliott fits that. Would be 3 drivers that can finish better than Hamlin or Larson. If that helps answer your question, James. But Josh Berry, starting in second. Practice speeds were okay. He was 13th and 8th. I'm not sure why it's only got 2 starts. I think I screwed that up. I think it's 3. Because he's not raced at Nashville in the Cup Series before. So he should have 3. He should have Gateway, Iowa, and Loudon. And he's run really well at all those tracks. I like the Josh Berry play. He could be sneaky. People are going to overlook him. I think he's a sleeper pick for a top 5. And he could potentially pull off a win. Anytime you're hunting the top 5, you're also in contention for the win. The only thing that I worry about with Josh Berry is he's really good. But he's showing, and not that this is a negative, so don't take it as a negative. He is showing signs of overdriving this car. And you can't overdrive this Cup car. It'll heat the tires up too much, you'll lose track position, or you'll slide up and get into somebody or get into the wall and then you break a tie rod. That's my only worry with Josh Berry. Are the little minute mistakes of when an aggressive driver steps one step too far. We see it with Kyle Larson all the time. Kyle Larson and Josh Berry are very similar drivers. They are on the edge. They are going to get 105% out of the car every lap, regardless. And sometimes they put themselves in sticky situations. Josh has a tendency to do that. Now, Josh also, if he has a pretty good clean race, he's going to probably finish top 5. Yeah. You're welcome, James. Daniel Suarez, $7,500 starting in 31st. You've got 2 totally different thought processes when it comes to Daniel Suarez and Ross Chastain. There's another guy that could easily win this race, Ross Chastain. Huge amounts of momentum on his side for this style track and Nashville. And Daniel Suarez, completely the opposite. I don't know what to do with Daniel Suarez, but starting in 31st, being a track house, I think this is a 15th place car. The practice speeds were awful, but his average finishes are pretty good. I don't mind having some Daniel Suarez starting in 31st. I'm glad he's kind of starting back there and not up a little bit closer, because he could be a little bit of a sleeper pick. So I don't mind running some Daniel Suarez. I don't love it though. I think probably his average finish is kind of where he might finish. It's kind of be a 16th, 17th, 18th. Now is that enough? I'd have to do the quick math, but probably. Chase Briscoe starting in 19th. And I guess I completely missed something with what happened with Briscoe in practice. And usually I'm really good about listening for these things, but I do not, and I was flying all night last night, so I had no chance to go and do some deep dive research, and I meant to. Why did Chase Briscoe only run 11 laps, and why was he 37th in practice and then still qualified? Not great, but okay. I don't remember. Something must have happened in practice that didn't allow him to get enough practice laps in. I don't know what it's to do your research on Chase Briscoe. But starting in 19th, he's hit or miss. I mean, he's locked into his ride next year at the 19 car. Sure, he wants to finish the season out strong. I'm not sure it's much better than where he's starting, so I'm probably a little bit of a fade on Chase Briscoe today. Yay, thanks, Paul. Yeah, hit the like button. Isn't Trackhouse based in Nashville? Yes, Trackhouse is based in Nashville. Not that has to do with any speed. Would think they want a good showing. Yes, I mean, that's exactly what happened last year and the year prior with Ross Chastain, and why Ross Chastain has been finishing so well at Nashville. Justin Marks, on a couple of his interviews, was like, this is our Coke 600. This is our race. I mean, literally downtown Nashville is covered on Broadway. Is it Broadway or Broad Street? I don't know. Either way, where all the bars are. Literally head to toe, Trackhouse, Trackhouse, Trackhouse. Pit bulls in town. They make the Nashville is Trackhouse. Absolutely. Ross Chastain has all the momentum for this race. Easily could win this race, if not another top 5. So there's another pick for you for potential wins. That's not a Hamlin and not a Larson. That's what I said. There are 8 guys that I realistically say could win this race. There's no way I'm going to the betting table and betting on one particular driver. There's just distinctly 7-8 drivers that could win this race. I mean, and Noah Gragson is one of those that could easily win this race. 16th in practice, 11th in 10-lap consecutive average. He ran a really good race in the Xfinity race yesterday with a cool suit that failed. I saw a picture on Twitter X last night when I finally got settled in. Noah looked like he was almost dead after his race. But 7,300 starting in 16th, it's not a bad play. It could be a little bit of a sleeper because he's starting a little bit further up than probably people want to take a bite at. So I don't mind the Noah Gragson play. Corey Heim. Is it Heim time? I think he's going to need... Corey Heim's going to probably end up having a moderate race and hopefully a quiet race. He needs to go out. He needs to learn this car. He needs to not get into trouble and needs to figure it out. Corey Heim is easily as good as a Hocevar. And if he just takes his time and is patient, he will easily just slip into a top 20 spot. And that might be enough for place differential. The problem is it's Heim time. And Corey Heim in DFS world, at least in the trucks, is the absolute number 1 pick week in and week out. Now, does that carry any weight over to the Cup Series? I'm sure it's going to give him a little bit of a bump. But I don't mind the Corey Heim play at all. His practice speeds were good, 17th and 13th. Briscoe had a flat right rear. Thank you. I knew it had to be something. But why didn't they just change the tire and send him back out? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I know it is only 20 minutes, so maybe they were like, okay, we're done. So, yeah, I don't mind the Briscoe play. I think it's much more of I'll be 10 to 14% owned. I might be a little bit more higher on Corey Heim and be 15 to 20%. But because it's Corey Heim, it could pull some ownership. But people could also be a little bit nervous because this 50 car has never done well other than Daytona 2 years ago, where, what's his name? The modern day Evel Knievel took over the car. I can't remember his name. Oh, well. Either way, we're talking about NASCAR. Austin Cindric. This is one of those I go, heck no way. I have no interest in Austin Cindric until Austin Cindric burned all of us at Gateway a couple weeks ago. And I still think that was just a fluke. I mean, Austin, I'm going to be a fade, to be honest. So if you're looking for a potential sleeper, I mean, I'm not going to be an all-out fade, but I'm probably 5 to 10% ownership on Austin Cindric. I'll throw him in a couple of like crazy lineups. Yeah, I just think he's starting too far up. And not that Gateway was an absolute fluke, but it was kind of a fluke. Michael McDowell, 6,900, starting in 14th. I mean, starting in 14th, but his practice speeds were good, and he's been running. The problem is, I think Michael McDowell's a 11th place finisher. From 14th to 11th, I'm not sure that gives you enough. I mean, it gets you close to the 40 mark, but not really. It's like 32. I'll take a couple shots on Michael McDowell. I'll probably take a few more shots on Michael McDowell than I would Austin Cindric. Don't love it, don't hate it. Todd Gillen, $6,700, starting in 32nd, but was really fast in practice, 5th and 10th. 19.8 average finish. But here at Nashville, a 29.5, but he has been consistently finishing way better than his average finish from history of tracks. I like the Todd Gillen play. I also think he's probably going to be 20% owned. So take that into account. We're getting into that range of we got to start taking some of these drivers to take the other drivers to the top of the field. Eric Jones at $6,600, starting in 34th. I mentioned earlier, I have no interest in Colleague. I have no interest in Trackhouse, or not Trackhouse, Colleague, RCR, or Legacy. So even starting 34th, I mean, I'll probably have 10% of my lineups. Like 4 lineups, I'll have Eric Jones in it, just in case he does happen to have a decent race. And this track does set up fairly well, kind of into where Eric Jones usually races pretty well. And the other thing is, we typically have, if we have a really quiet Xfinity race, we got a bonkers Cup race. Whereas if we have a crazy Xfinity race, usually we have a calm Cup race. They kind of ebb and flow against each other a little bit. So Xfinity was pretty quiet yesterday. Do we see a little bit of craziness today? I mean, it's always set up that way. AJ Allmendinger. For some reason, AJ likes this track. I mean, for a road course guy, he's got 2 starts here, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, a 14.5 average finish at Nashville, starting in 28th, and his practice speeds were 11th and 5th. And he had probably top 3 car yesterday, and just a bad pit stop cost him. He's driving a Colleague, as I just said, and I have no interest in Colleague. But for some reason, AJ's decent here, so if you're going to take a shot on one of those 3 team drivers that I was like, nope, don't like it. Why, it's Travis Pastrana. Yes, thank you. I didn't want to spend too much time trying to figure out who that was, but yes, Travis Pastrana in the 50 car at Daytona. Finished, I think, 3rd. Back to AJ, though. So out of all those drivers, I wouldn't mind sticking a few little things on AJ Allmendinger. Could be a little bit of a sleeper. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I'm not I'm not sure. I don't know if he finishes much better than where he starts. Without pulling, and strategies could come into play huge this week again. We've seen it week in and week out. Different strategies all over the place have given some of these guys really good finishes and really bad finishes. Ricky at, Iowa? I don't know, they kind of run together at this point. Wherever he finished third, that was Iowa, because he had won there 3 previous times at Xfinity. But Ricky and his team are starting to get to a point where they can't point their way in. They've got to win their way in, and just following everyone else is not going to get you there. So they're going to throw whatever they can at the wall and see if it sticks. Occasionally it does, occasionally it doesn't. So just be aware that Ricky's in that spot now. Ricky wants to make the playoffs. Carson Hocevar, of course, wants to make the playoffs, but I think Carson Hocevar is fine just being the 15th place driver. Week in, week out, Mr. Consistent. Other than he did spin out last week on purpose to cause a caution. I'm sure somebody pulled him aside. I'm sure probably sure the door bumper clear guys called him and were like, "What are you doing, dummy? You're supposed to get away from that crap." Because I think he's going to finish at best where he starts. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Carson Hocevar again this week. Brian Preece. The problem is I think this car is the issue for Ryan Preece. I think it's a little bit of where Kyle Busch is having problems. Brian Preece and the Truck Series dominated this race 2 years ago. Brian Preece is at heart a really good driver. He just has not fit well in this next gen car or with the 41 organization. I don't know if it's this car, or if it's a crew chief, or if it's a something in Ryan Preece is just having a tough spot. I don't know, but starting 22nd might be a little bit too high for me this week. John Hunter Nemechek, the gentleman who won the Xfinity race yesterday, starting in 35th, but once again, we are talking about a legacy Motor Club car. I don't know. Sure, maybe not. Starting in 35th, he's starting pretty far back. If you need to dive, if you need to do the dumpster dive, this could be a decent pick. Don't love it, don't hate it. I just don't like the legacy play. But I could see kind of running a John Hunter and AJ if you've got to go down this low. I'm just going to skip over Austin Dillon. Starting 11th, he was god-awful in practice. And his current trend line is awful. If his history's anything, 17th place average finish, 13th place average finish at. But no top 10s. And you're going to need somebody to take that much risk starting that high up. You're going to need to see a better average finish. Here's my sleeper of sleepers. Not everybody. I think a lot of people are going to be way off on Justin Haley this week. And that's when Justin Haley really, really thrives. Put him up against the wall. Tell him he can't do it. He is screwed. Yeah, John Hunter won yesterday. But different car. That was a Joe Gibbs car. He's driving a legacy car. The legacy's been awful. John Hunter won. I don't mind throwing a few darts at John Hunter. Justin Haley. He is the little train that could and will. I'm not sure. What are you asking, Matt? Didn't John Hunter and James win yesterday's Xfinity race? Yes. Was just curious. Okay. I'm sure if I missed something else. If I did, let me know. But Justin Haley, 5,600, starting in 33rd. They made an adjustment to the car. The car engineer got thrown out of the race. Justin Haley had to qualify because equal tires, scuffing them in, whatever. Qualified 33rd. He has to then go to 38th and then do a drive-through pass-through. So he will go a lap down immediately. So he's a lap behind the field to start. Well, I don't think that's that big of a deal. I think once he gets back on the lead lap, I think they play a couple strategy plays. I'm not saying Justin Haley's going to go up and get a top 10. Don't get me wrong on that. But I think he goes up and gets 20th, maybe 18th, which is going to be a home run after going a lap down immediately. So the two races we've seen earlier this year, I think Tyler Reddick had a drive-through penalty. Wasn't an issue, wasn't a problem. Joey Logano had a drive-through penalty. Wasn't an issue, wasn't a problem. Justin Haley's been running recently as good as those drivers. No reason to think that Justin Haley takes his penalty, goes back out, gets his lap back at the end of stage one or before, and now you're right back to where you started. I don't think it's a big deal at all. I think Justin Haley ends up having... Does it affect your race? Sure. He's going to have the worst pit stall. All of those things come into play. But that's been happening to Justin Haley all year, and he's been rebounding and doing well. Why would this week be any different? I like the Justin Haley play. That's going to be your sleeper pick. Because everybody's going to see that he's got a drive-through penalty and be like, heck no. It's a Rick Ware car. There's no way he'll be able to recover. Okay, bet against him. It would not shock me if he goes up and gets a top 10 either. I'm just not going to bet on that. I think he's going to be a 20th place car. Well, 33rd to 20th is enough at $5,700. Corey LaJoy, at best, he's going to finish where he starts. So, at that point, I don't have a whole lot of interest. Harrison Burton, at best, he finishes 20th, and that's probably not enough. I've got some hungry folks here that I need to take to the store and get food and lunch, so I'm gonna kind of zip on through this. Zane Smith, starting 36, 28th in single lap, 17th in 10 lap consecutive average. Starting 36, you don't have. You only got two other people behind you, and Chad Vincham, I didn't even put in here. He's 2 seconds off the field. Why they're even gonna waste the gas and tire, other than they probably already paid for it, and I guess give Chad Fincham some track time. I don't know. I didn't even put him in here. Not even worried about him. He's going to start 38th, and unless there's a massive wreck in the first 10 laps, he's going to finish 38th. Why do you think DraftKings went so soft on pricing this week? No one over 11,000, and only 3 above 10. I think it's for the same reason I'm kind of scratching my head a little bit on who to put as a real winner. We just literally went through Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Ross Chastain. You've got 7 drivers right there, right off the cuff, that easily potentially could win this thing. So anytime that you have a non-determinate, real surefire winner, DraftKings is going to go soft at the top. Whereas when a Kyle Busch goes and races in the Truck Series, Kyle Busch is 14,000. And then everybody else is below it, because then you've got to change the pricing lower because you've got the one high-price driver. But you've got everybody lower because there is this just consolidation of so many drivers that have the potential to win. I don't know that for a fact, but that's, if I'm pricing things, that's how I'm going to price it. There's just so many drivers that are at the top. We literally could see those 7 drivers finish 1 through 7. As I said, I'm not going to go bet the on the betting market on it, but that's if I'm going to, that's what I'm gonna bet. I'll put all 7 of those drivers in the top 10 and just see if it flies. Riley Herbst had a really good day yesterday too, also with a cool suit that failed him, and he was absolutely spent after the race and ended up having a pretty good day. Now, there's not a whole lot of correlation other than just track time between the Xfinity car and this car. And he's driving the 15 Rick Ware car. I think he kind of finishes where he starts. I think this is another one. He's kind of like Corey Heim. Him and Corey Heim should just go find each other and follow each other around all day. Don't wreck each other. Just, hey, you can be in front of me for a little bit. I'm going to be in front of you for a little bit. And we're going to run 28th all day. And we're going to log laps. And bring home the car in one piece and learn a lot. I think that's the goal for Riley Herbst. I think it's the goal for Corey Heim. Just my personal opinion. Zane Smith should join them. Just don't wreck each other. Stay on the lead lap and learn all day. Daniel Hemrick should be the same way. Starting in 37th, I mean, like I said, don't love the Kaulig play. Don't really like the Daniel Hemrick play. But if you're gonna take a couple of sneaky shots, you gotta find a cheap driver. I mean, Daniel Hemrick's the cheapest, other than Chad Fincham, which don't even waste your time. I mean, Daniel Hemrick could sneak out a 26th, which is his average finish. That's 10 spots of place differential at 5,100. Then you can potentially afford Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott with the Daniel Hemrick. I don't know. The Daniel Hemrick play is not awful. It's not. I don't love it by any means, but you got to have somebody down here. So yeah, the Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, Kyle Larson, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin. I do not like the Tyler Reddick play after looking at it. I don't love the Brad Keselowski play. I don't really love the Chris Buescher play. William Byron play I don't really love. Ty Gibbs, Josh Berry. Okay, I like those two. Alex Bowman. I think he finishes where he starts. For place differential, Truex is a decent play. Ryan Blaney is definitely a really good play. I mean, Joey Logano starting in 26, that's really far back there. I really like the Todd Gilliland play at $6,700 starting in 32nd. Suarez, I don't know. It is a Trackhouse home race, but even with that being said, last year Daniel still didn't have that great of a day. Justin Haley is my absolute sleeper pick. I think everybody else will be off on him. Watch me be completely wrong and watch Justin Haley still be 20% owned. I doubt it, though. I think he's going to be 8%. Corey Heim, Corey Heim's not a bad play at 7,200 starting at 29th. I think Corey Heim is going to go out and turn laps, get experience, not wreck the car, hopefully, and have a decent little day, finishing 20th. I'm not interested in Kyle Busch, Eric Jones. I think Noah Gragson is starting a little too far up. Do not like Harrison Burton play. Do not like the Corey Joy. Like I said, the Riley Herbst, Zane Smith plays. I just don't think there's enough place differential there that they're going to be able to get a hold of, unless we just see an absolutely best show of a race today. Austin Dillon at 11th. Nope, no interest. So that's everything. I need to get these folks to a place to get some food. Come back here, get my lineups set and ready. Do you think Bowman wins a race this year? From James. No, I do not. But I also do not think that Alex Bowman is on the hot seat. He is one of the most consistent top 10 drivers in the Cup Series. Ally, his sponsor, absolutely loves him. And Rick Hendrick spends a lot of money with Ally. And Ally spends a lot of money with Hendrick. So all those three factors is go get a 10th place finish, Alex. Everybody's happy with it. And occasionally you're going to be vying for a win. Can he win before the playoffs? I don't know. Honestly, I really don't know. He could go win today. Anytime that you consistently run in the top 10, you're always getting that potential. It's kind of like Sheldon Creed. Sheldon Creed keeps knocking out second place finishes in Xfinity. There's going to be enough times. Austin Cindric was running second or third, and Bell and Blaney both screwed up at Gateway, and he gets the win. That's all it takes. Just keep being consistent. The win will finally show up. Luck will get on your side. But if you're running 15th or 20th, it doesn't work. You don't get that lucky unless you're at Talladega or Daytona. But either way, I need to get these folks some food and myself some food and get back here, do some lineups, and then we're going to go hit the beach and do fun stuff the rest of the week. Good luck to everyone. I appreciate you tuning in, and hit that like and subscribe button. We will see you next week. We are headed to Chicago for the street course, and once again, we need to talk about no data. We might as well just, if the data is showing we're going to run in dry weather, everything from last year is out the window except for SVG is going to be good. So, all right, have a great one. We will see you next week. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here.
All right, I'm muted. Holy, wow. Almost at 100 people.